setting up any kind of connections to the facilities, whether that's the electrical panel work. Most of our electric system as far as poles and transformers, of course, are already in place, so we will be using, if we need, any other items, our electric department will offset those things internally, but the generators themselves and how they're wired is part of this bid. And I'll stand for any questions, comments.
Are these mobile so that if they're needed somewhere else, you can move them, or they're in place?
These are actual pad mounted, so there'll be permanent generators set up.
Are we advertising for a mobile? I thought we talked about getting one to be able to move around.
We did
back
this
in the budget.
We did discuss the mobile option for like the pump stations or for alternative lift stations if we need to get out there. With some of the numbers that we've seen on the buy boards just for the generators, we felt like at this time we don't know that the bids would come in and the value of that would be really there for the mobile yet, just because of the amount of the cost for that. So we tried to kind of focus on the critical infrastructure pieces, even though lift stations.
Maybe that's something we need to discuss in the next budget.
Okay.
Is there any anticipation that these are available, or is it like everything else?
So it is like everything else, and that's a great question. The intent was to get this out for bids. Talking with some of the vendors, Caterpillar was one of them, Kohler's another vendor that provides these. There's several different companies, but all of them are looking at 8 months to 12 months to actually get the generator. Our ARPA funding, we need to have an invoice and be moving forward by, I think, December of 2024. So this gives us kind of a year jump, and then you'll have the installation process that will, possibly take 4, maybe 5 months to get everything set up with the pads and all the conduit and electrical wiring.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Ward.
Thank you.
Next item is discussion and updates related to city developments.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. At your dais, I went ahead and kind of left you an overview of what I wanted to talk about this evening. I just briefly want to take some time to go over the residential and commercial properties and developments in town that you may see. One of the first ones in the commercial side is going to be, you may notice that the white triplex building that used to sit on the corner of Brown and 4th Street has been removed, and in its place will be some additional storage units. There's going to be a new retail strip center and storage units on the corner of 4th and Briggs. Right now, there are 2 storage buildings that are going up, and then the front piece of it will be a retail strip center that will face 4th Street. Eco Strong has been moved over to Pecan Street, and I believe some of y'all have taken a tour of that new facility. Silver Creek Assisted Living, which is the newest development that's across from Boone's RV Park. It currently is asking for, or I guess I should say is proposing for 2 additional 4-story buildings and 1 2-story building. It will be an additional 42 apartments, and they're going to be age restricted. They're looking at 65 and above. On the 2-story, they're going to have like a clubhouse on the bottom floor, and then the second floor will be 2 additional apartments. So right now in that area, we still have work to do. We do have to verify the footprint of where the 3 buildings will be sitting. We aren't, but the developer will have to relocate some utilities, verify some fire flow. We still haven't gone through the civil review yet. Some zoning amendments for the height, because right now our height restrictions wouldn't allow for 4 stories, so we're looking at that as well. And then we also have already taken it to the zoning board for a variance for parking. It was required that they had 75 spaces for the new complex, so they were able to do a variance to bring it down to 50 to accommodate the age-restricted apartments. For the beer market, there are new owners of the business. The actual property owner is still the same, but they do have new owners of the facility itself. You might notice that there is still a dirt pile there to the side by the alley, and that is something that's being worked on. That is to make room for the grease interceptor that has to be in place for the beer market and for the new coffee shop that'll be on the corner. Right now, we are going through some type of architectural plan review so that we can get some good specifications for the grease interceptor. Once that's been approved, then we can move forward with that project.
So you mentioned a new coffee shop on the corner. Is it the same owners that own the beer market, or is there someone
No,
new?
ma'am, it's different. The Lampasas Rice Building that has been doing some interior demolition, that building is now for sale from what we understand. So basically all activities pretty much come to a halt until there's some new owners that have purchased that building as well. Starbucks, as you notice, the gas station is down. They're working on the pad, getting not really the pad, but they're working on the actual parking lot itself, getting ready. We have issued permits for the actual shell itself because we'll have one developer or contractor, if you will do the shell part, and then Starbucks will come in and finish it out once they're ready. Santa Fe Depot project, which is on 2nd and Live Oak, that's come back to us. Right now, currently, we've issued permits as of June 8th for the shell, which will be the first building that will be facing 2nd Street. The actual first permit phase was going to be for the flat work, slab, and plumbing rough at this point. Electrical and mechanical will come a little bit later. The Rutland's building, you might notice some interior demolition down there on both sides, the ladies' side and what was Rutland's. One side, which is the ladies' side, is actually going to be a tasting room and distillery, I believe, and on the other side is going to be office space, retail, meeting type location at this time. The old Perks building is currently going to be renovated or finalizing the renovations for a new bar called Whiskey and Wrenches. We're going to do a final walkthrough tomorrow and probably do a punch list to see what they need to do to open, but they're really close to opening. And then I wanted to put out a few feelers out there for my girls. They are getting new inventory and they're starting to do more marketing on Facebook. So they are really trying to get more citizens and more community involvement in their business. Wool and Vine, the same. They've got new hours, new menu, and some regular entertainment that's coming more often. And Mercantilles downtown as well. They're continuing to flourish. They've got 2 stories worth of merchandise, and they're constantly bringing in fresh and new inventory as well. For the old Amvets building over by the beer barn, I have issued an interior demolition permit for that, so they're doing some interior clean out. I do not have any prospects of what's going to be in the building in the future, but I do know there is some movement over there as well. You might notice here soon in the strip mall where there is Golden Chick and Pizza Works, the corner building in that area is going to be for T-Mobile. We'll be moving into that location. I have issued permits for it to do that. It's going to be a tenant finish out, so it'll be progressing pretty quickly. And then we have Lolly's Ice Cream Shop over in the Santa Fe Square Shopping Center that's right next to the Dollar Tree. I've heard really good reviews about it. It's been open for about a month now, and they're doing really well. And then Gillen's Wine and Candies, again, they've been doing pretty well. They've been marketing, they've been doing promotions and advertising for their business as well. So I believe they're doing well in the community, and they seem to be expanding in their opportunities as well. So for residential developments, does anybody have any questions about commercial so far before I move on? Okay, so for residential development, Stone Valley, it was a 67-home subdivision. We have less than 10 left to permit. For Brody Estates, it's a 22-home subdivision. We've issued 6 permits. 3 have been completed. For Hillside Acres, it's a 28-home subdivision, and we've done 7 permits have issued, and 3 homes have been complete. Hidden Oaks is the 12-home subdivision off of Naruna. We have got the infrastructure complete. The final plat will be filed, and building permits will progress soon.
I did have a question on that one. I couldn't remember offhand, what was the size of those houses that were going in out there? Because those lots are pretty small.
We don't have sizes of the actual square footage yet. We haven't got any building plans for them. Shepherd Lane, you'll notice some development over there. There's 4 houses. We replatted a few months ago. We did for 7 lots out there. That's between Teton and Private Road 1015, which is Deblin. But there are 4 actual houses that are going to be breaking ground pretty soon. Some have already done so.
I thought there were only going to be 2 out there, 2 homes.
No, it's going to be 4 of them total. There's going to be 3 lots that are on private road 1015. They'll be vacant for a while, but there are 4. One pretty substantial in the middle, one facing Shepherd Lane, well, 2 facing Shepherd, and then one towards the back where I'll have a Diamond Ridge address that came in off of there.
Okay.
Let's see. You'll notice that we have Rex Johnson, RKJ Homes. They're finishing up duplexes on 3rd Street. They're finishing up a house on Bridge and 4 on Brown Street downtown. We have some proposed development on North Race Street and then on Gamble and Northington. So they're progressing and building lots of homes in town as well. Tom Lancaster has done several homes in town. We're going to be doing some homes on Summer Street here pretty soon. It'll be 3 of them. We have to do a variance first for some lot accommodations, but they'll be breaking ground pretty soon. And then the latest development that we're still working on is Northington Creek Estates, and that's the big one over off of Mill and Brown Street. It's about 40 acres for 177 homes is what's proposed. We're still looking at a lot of aspects for that property and water flow. They're looking at possible addition of additional land for not only an access point off of 4th Street, but maybe to expand and do more homes as well. So we're verifying the water flow at this point and still looking at our egress and ingress, looking at a traffic study for 4th Street of the impact that it will have. So we're still working on several facets of that project.
How many lots?
Initially, it's going to be 177, but that might change. It might go down depending on what they want to do with their frontage. But right now, it's 177.
On going back up to Hidden Oaks,
Yes, sir.
is that the one out on 1478?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And it's outside the city limits?
We've actually annexed it in. It's inside
is?
the city limits now. Yes, sir.
Have we set the zoning?
No, sir. I normally will do the zoning once they start building the home, so we know the square footage, so we make sure it's a good fit for that area. So once we start doing the building permits, then we'll get it zoned accordingly. And then the very last piece you might notice is over on Chestnut Street. There is a 2-story house, or was a 2-story house, that was in really bad substandard condition right across from the church from St. Mary's, and it's actually been demoed. The church has purchased that house, so it's starting to look a lot better in that area as well. And I think that's all the updates I have for you. I might have more, but that's all I could come up with right now. So if y'all have any questions about anything, please let me know.
That's a bunch.
Yes, sir. It's a lot to keep up
Thank
with.
you, Becky.
You're welcome.
Next item is discussion regarding water conservation.
Hello again, Mayor, Council. This was one and an item that we really wanted to, discuss, and I know it's on the public's mind right now with the heat that we've been experiencing, and water being one of our most precious resources and something that we really want to, manage the best that we can. The different things, and I was actually on the local radio show, I guess last Wednesday, and we talked about a lot of these different items that I kind of want to go over briefly again, just so that the public's aware. There's a lot of easy things to do to conserve water around the house. Some of the things for tips for bathrooms or replacing shower heads, fixing leaks. I think most of these things are fairly common. Taking showers instead of baths. There's some things for the kitchen and for washing clothes where, if you have full loads of laundry or dishes, that's the best time to wash. Some folks may wash, a few dishes here and there, but just those small little things that you can do to really kind of focus on conserving water. Some of the things that are critical outside, and you see in a lot of communities, and of course this year with the lack of rain that we've had, folks that are doing lawn projects, looking at xeriscaping. The environment that I came from recently, you saw a lot of xeriscape. There wasn't really yards. Of course, it was more of a desert, type of atmosphere where I was. But, looking for ways to kind of improve on that, cut down on the watering. I think some of the things that were really pointed out is, try to water, but really soak soak the roots, do it less, but water maybe a little bit longer, and cut that back. Buying native plants or planting native is another, great way to try to conserve water, and plants that can deal with the heat and restricted water. Don't cut your lawn too short. If you leave the grass a little bit longer, it really helps the root system and keeping that moisture in. And if you wash your car at home, one of the things is to try to use a bucket of soapy water and minimize when you're rinsing the car off. We're not, and that leads me into my next item along with this is current drought status. We're not to phase one, looking at the Brazos River Authority, Steelhouse, which is the lake that's our reservoir, is actually at 85% currently. Typically the threshold for that, even though there's different types of evaporation and inflows. If there's no rain by July or late July, the projection for our reservoir is to be at 80%, and the threshold for us typically drought phase one is about 83%, so we're just above it right now. But it won't take a lot of days of the heat and no rain to get us to what the projection is of 80%. So I just wanted to put that out there. So obviously the first phase is hoping that folks will start conserving and really putting that out there. And so I think we're close enough that we really kind of need to be focused on that and getting the word out. Our IT department has a link for the Brazos River Authority on our webpage, on the front page. And so the link will take you to some of these different conservation sites for the Brazos River Authority. So I just wanted to make sure the public was aware of that. That's out there too as a resource.
Is that, I know we get it on the news and stuff, and they've been saying Steelhouse is around 616, and the trigger is 605, generally is about that. I was just trying to, from a standpoint of the public,
Right.
knowing what to look for, and also should we be taking out some ads or anything? Is that something we could?
Well, I think it's certainly been posted. It's been, there have been stories in the newspaper, as well as we've been pushing items out on social media.
I know there are in the Killeen paper, and
No,
I get
the
them.
Lampasas papers had at least 2 stories on it.
They had one, I think, this past week.
They had a story on it.
Right.
That's true.
We'd certainly want to, I think the important part of the phase that we're in right now is that although there are no mandatory restrictions, we still have a responsibility to educate and promote the wise use of water. And so I think that's what our intention is at this point. And certainly if you have any ideas on how we can do that more efficiently to a broader audience, please let us know.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next item is discuss and review the City of Lampasas Personnel Policy, Section 8.00, leave time, Section 8.08, public service.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We wanted to put this in front of you. It has been brought to our attention that we may need some clarification as well as some parameters for a certain section of our personnel policy that was actually, I remember when we did this, I had actually forgotten that we wrote this particular amendment to the personnel policy, but I believe we did this in 2013 or 2014. And then based on your input, we can prepare an amendment for your consideration at the next meeting, or in the alternative, we can continue to operate under the current practice. What this item is we do want to clarify, discuss parameters for employees who volunteer their time for public festivals and community events. Typically, the item has been required the employee to use vacation time to provide that sort of volunteer work. The public service section within the personnel policy 808, I think the amendment, in staff's opinion, does not provide sufficient clarity, nor does it provide parameters, for example, the number of hours that we would allow or provide that paid time off for public service for. As you can read, the public service section of the personnel policy does identify certain items. For example, volunteering for the Lampasas Volunteer Fire Department, donating blood, mentoring children at school, that sort of thing. And it's certainly, if council would want to consider an amendment to the personnel policy, we would certainly would like your input on the clarity, maybe an amendment to identify the type of service, i.e. community festivals, as well as the maximum number of hours that we would be allowed. So the staff is neutral on this. Again, the practice has been that employees that have been involved in those sorts of activities have used vacation time during their normal working hours. The other item that is clearly stated in the current policy is it would be allowed providing services not disrupt working needs of the city. So we welcome your input and comment on that, and we'll come back to you or not come back to you if that's your direction.
My concern with this is, as everyone knows, I'm not a government employee per se. I'm a private sector. And in the private sector, I've always been able to volunteer for public service without taking my vacation. And so that's my experience with it. And Finley tells me that in the past, they have required vacation time to be used. I don't know how many people we're talking that have used it, maybe 2 or 3.
Correct.
Does anyone else have any ideas?
Is this an issue that we see in the city right now, or is this something that, or is this just a kind of clarification, trying to?
This would be a clarification.
Okay.
Yes.
My personal opinion, I think if it's outside of city activities where they're volunteering to help with an event that's not city-related, like if they were on the Spring Hoe Committee or something like that, I think they need to use vacation hours. That's my personal opinion.
And that's our current practice or yes.
Any others?
What if it's something that is city-oriented, like Christmas on the Creek? No, that's not really city-oriented.
No, I would think Spring Hoe would be much more, since it is a week-long festival and it involves the whole city. That would be my thought, that one that would be permissible. But most of the other activities are usually a day long and they don't involve much city participation.
I mean, I think it's good. I think it's good. Well, I'm a volunteer person, so I mean, I think it's good for city employees to go out and volunteer for city and different community activities because it shows the city's involvement or willing to be involved and help. So, I mean, what if you capped it at a certain number of hours a year, as long as it didn't affect their jobs or something like that?
Certainly it would be staff's recommendation that if you did want to consider that you would also, we would have some sort of parameters in terms of the number of hours.
Me personally, if it's not an issue right now and we're able to get it done with the department supervisor and the work can still be done, I don't see the need to change the policy, me personally.
The other item, I mean, and again, I'm not trying to prolong this by any means, but would council, or at least maybe when we have 2 or 3 more council folks here, at least refer to it on a report item or bring it back to workshop?
Sure, that would work for me.
We'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Certainly, if you have any additional input, please let me know.
Thanks, Finley. Next item, discussion regarding any item on the regular agenda. Does anyone need to discuss anything? At Then I think if we have no objections, we could just continue on into the regular meeting. Is that okay? Okay, let's adjourn the workshop.
Make a motion to adjourn workshop.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So I will now call to order the regular session, and Chief Jody, would you please lead us in prayer?
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the graciousness of being able to meet here tonight to work on your business for the citizens, for all of us. We pray that you'll be with those that are making decisions and those that are providing information, and that the information will flow and that the decisions will be made best that suit everyone involved. We'd like to thank you for the chance of rain this week, and if you see fit, we'd sure like to have some. If you can spare a little, we ask that you will watch over us tonight in everything, be with us in safety as we travel home to our families, and until we can meet again, amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. Pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
That's what I'm saying. Next item is presentations and proclamations, and we do have some service anniversaries. Abel Palacio, 5 years. Joe Levine, 15 years. Sean Schroeder, 15 years. And Joe Adams, 20 years. Yeah. Although that's not really very good. Next item, citizen comments. Any citizen who desires to address the City Council on a matter not included on the agenda may do so at this time. The City Council may not deliberate on items presented under this agenda item. We have no one. Citizen comments. Any citizen who desires to address the City Council on a matter that is included on the agenda may do so at this time. Nothing there. 2.1, minutes. Discussion and possible action concerning the approval of minutes of the regular meeting on June 13, 2022.
In looking over the minutes, they looked good to me, so I moved to approve the minutes.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mayor, excuse me, but I might just make the quick comment that because we're 3 members short, any affirmative action or any action that you take will require 4 votes, so.
Consider that I voted for that. The consent agenda, discussion and possible action regarding May 22, 2022 investment report.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We do not have a board meeting tonight. It will be on the next meeting. We do have city manager's operational report.
Just a few brief comments. This follows the memo that I believe was emailed to you over the weekend, as well as is a hard copy provided to you at the dais. A couple of items related to a business park, primarily the pay request number 2. As a reminder, this is approximately a $2.7 million project for the LEDC. So the city is not the contracting party on this, although we are doing a pretty extensive inspection and keeping our eyes very close to the project. The city's commitment to it was through the allocation of American Rescue Plan Act funds, which council approved at $971,000 for water and wastewater infrastructure. To date, which is inclusive of pay estimate 1 and 2, the contractors earned about $540,000. We've kept 10% of that as retainage, and pay to date is $486,000. The pay estimate number 2 includes about $267,000 in water wastewater expense, and again with 10% of that being held as retainage. So if you look at the overall project and what we paid over 2 estimates, it indicates that about 31% of the project is complete according to the pay estimates, as well as if you look at the water and wastewater infrastructure, we're about 55% of those expenses being covered to date. And of course, it makes sense. You got to put the pipe in the ground before you can build the roads, et cetera. So that seems to be pretty straightforward. I did not get a chance to tour the site on today or Monday, but we'll certainly provide you an update. And hopefully, I understand some of you have been taking a tour out there with Ryan and/or Mandy, but that provides you at least a financial update through pay estimate number 2. Job fair, Mandy reports at a successful job fair on June 16th. Although the number of job seekers was less than in previous years, employers indicated the quality of applicants was generally better than anticipated. We had approximately 30 employers and 50 job seekers, and we understand that there were 31 on-site interviews conducted and 9 job offers extended as a result of that. So although the numbers are down, I think that's still a positive event, and certainly the employers saw value in it. Central Texas Water Supply Corporation, we knew this was going to happen because they did put us on notice that they would be appealing to the Supreme Court, but they did file their petition for review on June 13th regarding the ongoing billing methodology the ongoing dispute is related to the billing methodology of Central Texas Water Supply Corporation. At this time, our council believes it's probably best to waive response, and that doesn't mean that we give up the fight. That just means we leave it to the court to decide if they even want to hear it. If the court decides, if one judge votes for pushing it forward, then it could not go forward without a response from us. It does appear through reading the petition that they have given up their claim of that Lampasas didn't have any standing for intervention, which should streamline any response that we're asked to give, because that now 100% of the issues are shared with Kempner. We will be glad to provide you a copy of the petition if you need some late night reading material. Hostess House, on June 15th, we met with Reliance Architecture representatives. We talked confirmed scope, talked about ad alternates. It also gave us a great opportunity to just walk that site one more time, get all of our items cleaned up related to finishes and any other ancillary improvements or touch-ups that we would want to do at the same time. I believe you do have the email from them highlighting the meeting as well as their schedule, tentative schedule. The items that were highlighted in terms of ad alternates were changing rooms adjacent to Hancock Pool, a technology package. We also wanted to note the salvage items and finish upgrades. The tentative schedule calls for August and September plan reviews, as well as approval, September advertisement, and November for construction commencement. Just to remind you as well, we have through this process, kind of targeted that first and second quarter to do the lion's share of the work. That project may be extended a little closer into June, July, but again, this typically is a slower time. We have not been taking bookings after, I believe the last event we have is October 27th. So we've anticipated this sort of schedule, and certainly now we're a little bit clearer in terms of the milestones. LEDC, just a quick meeting recap. They met on June 15th. Some nuts and bolts items, took a look at financials, the annual audit, also began the 2023 budget discussion. Additionally, a fair amount of their agenda also included business park-related items, including development and platting considerations, street naming, design standards. Also included discussion on signage, also approval of the appraisal of 3 lots that would kind of be the standard or the target price that we would move up or down depending on the quality and size of lots. That is going to be done by CBRE, and as well as covenants and design standards. Please look for or be prepared for the corporation budget being submitted to council, I would think in July, perhaps August. Hannah Springs, and I didn't put this on my report to beat a dead horse, but the reason I included it is because I felt like there was some distraction with the qualification or not qualification of a bidder that we received for the removal of that wall. And I just want to be clear to council that if council thinks this is a compelling project or project they want to move forward with, staff's fine, but we just have to do it according to state procurement laws and our procurement policy. So I just wanted to remind council that if you did want to move forward, we could move forward, but not in the manner that we were heading the other night. So short-term rentals, this is an item that Councilmember Keeney has inquired about, and the need to address short-term rentals within the city of Lampasas. It's been somewhat of a hot topic in other jurisdictions, the private use of homes, generally in residential areas, and when I was in Omaha last week, that's exactly where we stayed. It is, regardless of if you want it or not, I think it's inevitable. You're going to have it. It's just a matter of setting up the administration of this land use and balancing this land use with, in consideration of your neighbor or maybe somebody that wants to do an Airbnb next to your house. So we've got to be considerate of the impacts to residential neighborhoods. Typically, any land use regulation obviously is recommended by Planning Commission to City Council, and that's certainly the path that we would recommend that the city take. Certainly in Section 10.2 of the zoning regs, Council may ask Planning Commission to take on that consideration, and I think it certainly makes sense for us to start to concurrently begin the talk in the development of some sort of draft ordinance or amendment to the zoning regulations that would deal with short-term rentals. Based on the issues I've described, the crafting and enactment of a land use policy can be kind of tedious, as well you know from the dealing with subdivision regulations and things like that. So we would anticipate that could take a couple of meetings, 2 or 3 meetings. And we also would want to make sure that we draft something that is kept in conformance or in context with the comprehensive plan. Staff is prepared to proceed based on council direction, and certainly we will tentatively place it on Planning Commission for a first look at the next available meeting, and certainly interested in any input you might have at this time.
I think that's something we need to look into. Also, you may want to check around with some other cities. They may already have obviously started that process, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Oh, absolutely. I think TML has some resources related to the short-term rental issue, and there are a lot of cities that have really struggled with balancing this sort of convenience for the traveling public versus impacts to a residential neighborhood in terms
Well,
of
I
noise
certainly
and
think-
disruption.
I certainly think with the eclipse coming, we're gonna hear more and more about that.
Sure. And I'd certainly defer to Councilmember Keeney if she had any other comments as well, since she's brought it to our attention.
Well, I think it's something that's coming, and just before the meeting, I just kind of hopped online to check, and there are already 3 in town right now that are in the city limits. I was found on a very fast Google search. So, and, I mean, I think that we do need to look at both sides of it. It's not something we need to jump into blindly, but there are some potential revenues from it because we get hotel motel tax from these people. So, help the hot funding.
Mayor, the last item I'd like to mention is just a reminder that the TxDOT Relief Route meeting is tomorrow evening at the middle school. I also got notice today that they will hold another meeting, I believe it's July 12th, on improvements to 183 between Lomita and Lampasas. So that's something that certainly could impact us positively, but that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Finley. No mayor comments, no unfinished business, new business, discussion and possible action regarding the first reading of an ordinance to amend the City of Lampasas subdivision regulations.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This item was briefly brought up on the June 13th meeting in my absence, just to kind of let you know that it was coming. Back in June of 2021, Council adopted an ordinance amending the City of Lampasas subdivision regulations specific to the construction guarantee, which allowed more latitude to allow for a letter of credit in place of a bond. And this is to ensure that the infrastructure was complete on new subdivisions. We're asking for the same latitude this evening for the construction side of it, for the maintenance. Right now, when we have the maintenance guarantee, we're asking in our subdivision regs that it be a bond, and we're asking for a letter of credit to be able to be utilized in that capacity as well for the 2-year maintenance agreement they're required to have once we've accepted and approved the infrastructure. So this evening, I'm asking to consider a motion to approve the first reading of an ordinance amending City of Lampasas Code of Ordinances, Chapter 70 Subdivision, Section 70.6, Guarantee of Performance F Maintenance Bond, or Maintenance Performance, I'm sorry.
I'll make a motion to approve the first reading of an ordinance amending City of Lampasas Code of Ordinances, Chapter 70, Subdivision, Section 70.6, Guarantee of Performance, Maintenance Guarantee.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Are there any questions or comments?
This has been approved by the attorney, right?
Yes, she reviewed the subdivision regulations and the ordinance as well. And it's the
Thank you.
same language that we used before.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anything else? Have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you.
Becky. 7.2, discussion and possible action regarding the award of a bid for HMAC paving project 01 STR-22.
Mayor, Council, we were excited. We had several bidders. Today, this RFB was closed at 2 o'clock, and we had actually 4 bidders that bid on this particular project. This is the hot mix where we're doing some overlays on some of our streets, and we're doing mill and inlays. So basically a process where the mill and inlay where we'll grind the top of the asphalt off 1.5 inches, put down a new asphalt surface, and then the other streets that are identified will have just an overlay. So on top of the existing asphalt, the surface was still good, so we're gonna go back on top of that. It's about 1.6 miles is what we're gonna address with this project. We've identified Siouxland, Piccadilly, Ramsey, South Live Oak, Park Street, or Park Lane, Briggs, Heatherly, Walnut, and that's North Walnut, Brown Street, Bridge Street, Skyview, Sunset, and Snell. So we tried to look across the city, and thankfully our Our street department had done the Pazer evaluations that we talked about a while back, so we had some data to go off of. We tried to identify roads that were scored between a 2 and a 5, which are roads that are almost in failing condition, but may be able to be rehabilitated through this means, and so those were the roads that we really targeted. And the bidders, we actually had a low bid, which was Texas Materials. They were at $395,038.02. We had a high bid of $470,778.25. And the other bids were.
Do we have a bid tab?
We do. The bid tab, I'll be glad to read the two items. So the bid tab was 14,866 square yards of mill and 1.5 inlay type D hot mix with a 1/2 inch per the TxDOT's item 340, inclusive of edge saw cuts, reworking of base material as needed, tack application on edges, and other exposed base material, should we get into the base material.
I meant a bid tabulation of who all bid
Yes,
and what their amounts were.
we do. So as I mentioned, Texas Materials was our low bidder at $395,038.02. The next bidder was Blacksmith Ventures out of Jacksboro. They were $449,671.22. And then Lone Star Paving was $450,342.80. And then, as I mentioned, the high bidder was Bennett Paving at $470,778.25.
If in the future, if you could have a copy of it for us, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. Since we opened it at 2, we were trying to get it through, but we'll definitely do
understand.
that.
Could I get a motion and a second, and then we'll go with further questions if there are any?
I make a motion to accept the bid from Texas Materials for $395,038.02 for the paving projects.
I second.
Okay. Are there any other questions of Mr. Ryan?
If I could add, just so that council's aware, I'd put together a cost estimate, and the cost estimate that I'd put together was in 1% of the lowest bidder. So I think I had about $398,000 is what the cost estimate was when I initially put it together. So they were right there at it, so I felt good with the number.
Yeah. If you could, just send everybody a copy of that when you have it ready.
I can do that, thank you.
Motion and a second. Are there, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
.3, discussion and possible action regarding approval for the Pyrotechnico Fireworks Incorporated to conduct a fireworks display on July 6, 2022.
Mayor and council. We've done, I believe, our due diligence as city staff of checking into everything with the company that we've utilized with the Spring Hope Committee. I've asked Reese Mann to be here this evening if you had any questions for him regarding what's going on. All their licensing is in order. Their insurance is up to date. I have been to the site. It's the same site we used at Gavin Garrett Soccer Field. I have not seen any new structures or anything that appears to be threatened at the time. 24 hours prior to the event, we'll evaluate weather, see if there's any reason that we need to cancel that show at that time. But right now, I think we're good to go, and with your approval to move forward to allow the Spring Hope fireworks to happen.
I would move to approve Pyrotechnico Fireworks Incorporated to conduct a fireworks display on July 6, 2022,
I'll second.
submitted by the fire department.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Mayor, council, thank you.
Thank you, sir. 7.4, discussion and possible action regarding the use of 580 Sports Complex for the annual Lampasas County Area Go Texan Barbecue Cook-Off October 7th through the 8th, 2022.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So the Go Texan Barbecue Cook-Off is an event that has been held at 580 in the past. It's a very good event, no issues. I think this year they're trying to include a concert, so that'll be a little different. What they're asking of the city is very minimal. Some temporary water and some trash detail. I think Ms. Leffler is in attendance if you have some questions for her, but we have taken this to the Parks Board as well, and they support the event.
I make a motion to approve the use of the 580 Sports Complex for the annual Lampasas County Area Go Texan Barbecue Cook-Off to be held October 7th and 8th, 2022.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any other comments?
I had a question. What exactly on the water? Like,
Right.
what does that entail for you guys to do?
It will probably be a temporary 2-inch line that we'll run. We've got the connections already there. It'll be a real simple line to run. We may not run the line out to where they need it, but we'll give them access to water as needed. So very simple.
Like an above-ground temporary PVC kind of thing?
Probably PVC. I don't know yet.
Anything else? Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. 7.5, discussion and possible action regarding the TxDOT Highway 281 South right-of-way acquisition from the City of Lampasas and cost to cure reimbursement in the amount of $22,577.
I'm going to step down.
Thank you.
Mayor and Council, although we don't have a satisfactory number to pass a motion related to this agenda item, without objection, I'd like to go ahead and present.
Yes, please.
On January 10th, Council provided the authority to the city manager to negotiate and finalize conveyance of what can be described as a very narrow strip of land on the west side of 281 from approximately the new assisted living facility to Alfredo's. This is best described as the bank of Sulphur Creek, as you can see it wrap around. It is narrow. It's about 700 feet plus or minus by about 15 feet, with the exception of one small area that's a little bit wider than that. The area is about 12,000 square feet, about 0.27 acres. And this area is required by TxDOT for their South 281 project. There are two items that compensation was appraised for. One was the value of the property, which they valued at $53,312, and then what they call is a cost to cure. You have, I believe, some handouts from the appraisal at the dais, and the cost to cure they valued at about $22,577 for a total of $75,889. The cost to cure is to deal with those improvements on the property that will either have to be removed or moved back or put in once they do the construction. All of these improvements are on, or a percentage of them are on the property that we are conveying to TxDOT. However, they serve primarily the property owner that has an easement through there. And if you recall, there's a low water crossing there that actually goes through the golf course to access a piece of property. Those items include a kind of a rock wall, entrance wall, cattle guard, some fencing, that sort of thing, to the total of about $22,577. And although council gave the city manager the authority to finalize the conveyance, because this now deals with a third party, I think I'm seeking a blessing from council to work with the beneficiary of that easement to replace the rock wall, reimburse them up to the estimated TxDOT amount just for those items that they wish to have done. Like I said, I think we can certainly move forward with the conveyance to TxDOT. We are going to get the cost to cure dollars regardless of whether we replace a cattle guard. So I think what I'd like to do is maybe bring this back at the next meeting. Certainly, if you have any questions now, I'd be happy to answer, but you could not make a motion at this time anyway. But I'd be
Any
happy to
questions?
answer any questions on that.
I think we're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this point, we can adjourn for the evening.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all for coming.